One of the big feedbacks we get from IdeasLab is, I loved working with engineers. I'd never have spoken to them. I loved working with somebody in drama. I'd never have gone over to the arts centre. Magic happens. And I feel like when you bring those teams together, that's when they open up their minds and the solutions just come in ways that we never thought of and that they never thought of.
Hello and welcome to the Future of Universities podcast series. My name is Madeline Arkins. I'm a research project officer at UIN and your host for today. In this episode, I'm joined by Jenny Mullery, Community and Impact Manager at IdeasLab, the student innovation hub at the University of Galway. Here we explore their mission to help students accelerate into the startup ecosystem, the Create Her initiative that empowers female students in entrepreneurship, and the challenges and successes of incubating student ventures. Join us for an inspiring and insightful discussion on student innovation and entrepreneurship. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking to Jenny Mullery here with me. Jenny is the Community and Impact Manager at IdeasLab. Here she works to build an interdisciplinary community of students who can support and learn from one another, helping them grow and develop their ideas and connect with the broader enterprise ecosystem, both in Galway and beyond. In her role, she is also program manager of Start 100, the University of Galway's first student incubator. And for those present at UIN's conference in Budapest, Jenny and her colleagues won the Entrepreneurship at Universities category for their presentation of this work at Start 100. So we're very excited to hear more about that today. Jenny, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
To start us off, I would love to just hear a general introduction about IdeasLab, what they do, their mission and vision, and perhaps what brought you to the realm of student entrepreneurship.
I might start off with myself. I am a former banker. I spent over 15 years working in financial services and I suppose loved all things business and worked across many sectors. I suppose my love of business came from there, but always had this thought in my head when I was in university and always wondered how would I weave my way back in to work with students. And I never knew at the time what that might be. But about 5 years ago, I joined the University of Galway and I joined in accounts. Then I moved into the innovation space and worked in the TTO, but still always had the draw towards I really want to work with students on the ground. Then an opportunity came up to work in IdeasLab, and the role that I'm in now really gave me the opportunity to pursue the two things that I love, I suppose working with students and business. So that is essentially how I came to work in IdeasLab. IdeasLab is a space in the University of Galway. We sit outside of the schools and colleges in the traditional sense, in that we are a unit and we are open to all disciplines and all years of study. And I think that's really important to us, the multidisciplinarity. Our mission really is to create a space where we can help students to accelerate into the startup ecosystem within Ireland and beyond, but also to help develop skills that enterprise are looking for. So entrepreneurial mindset and thinking, I think, is equally relevant in industry and not just for people who want to go out and work on their own ideas. So we really focus on that area. And essentially that's it in a nutshell. And we're really focused on creating a community of students, entrepreneurs, enterprise partners, community, social partners, and creating a hub where people can connect and learn and support each other in what they're trying to do.
Great. It's really interesting. I think I'd say from your experience working in TTO in terms of like commercialization, valorization to an incubator, I feel like you probably get quite a holistic view of all sides of that kind of valorization. Start 100 is a relatively new venture in IdeasLab beginning in 2021, I believe. How did this incubator arm come about?
Start 100, I suppose, in name was born before I joined the team, so I won't take credit for that. And essentially it came about, we are located in the west of Ireland. We will be deemed to be a moderate innovation region in terms of where we're located. And I suppose there was a gap in terms of, well, what can we do to strive to make us a strong innovative region? And what can we do in the space that we're in, which is working with students essentially. And therefore the idea came about of setting up an incubator program. The University of Galway hadn't done one, so this was an opportunity to do something new and innovative in a space that required that. When I joined the team, my task was a one-line: develop and run a student incubator program, Start 100, every summer for the next 3 years. So the journey began for me in terms of exploring and figuring out what it would look like, and working really closely with my team in terms of figuring out the do's, the don'ts, doing lots of research. And essentially, that's where the idea came from.
So it's a 6-week intensive course. What are the main activities that go down during the 6 week?
So our ideas, for example, last year ranged from a student working on a stroke detection device to a group of students working on a series of films that will be used to help students with mental health problems in the universities. And we had some social enterprises as well. So the 6 weeks is comprised of workshops in certain skills that they might want to do. So we really focus in on underpinning our programs with the design thinking and problem solving approach. We do a lot of peer-to-peer learning in terms of getting them to talk to each other, to network. We get in a lot of speakers. So we get in founders who have traveled the journey, and we try and bring in speakers from all different steps in that process, in terms of people who have just started it, to people who are very experienced and maybe gone on and sold their business or whatever their end game might have been. And then we focus on just connecting them to the ecosystem. So locally, we will connect them to, say, our local enterprise board, or there might be the equivalent. We'll connect them to other accelerator programs, which might be their next step. We'll introduce them to funders, to investors. So it's quite intense in terms of the information that they receive. It's trying to be holistic and give them all of the tools and skills that they need to make an informed decision as to what their next step might be. And then to also do that, because all of the teams are on very different paths in terms of where they are in their journey and also what they're working on, we align them with an industry-specific mentor. So we do assign one per team at the start, and they have those 1 hour per week session. And then we do chop and change and bring people in as and when they need it. So it's very hands-on. And we do encourage the students to be present. So we give them a shared workspace for the duration of the 6 weeks that they can come in and go on the journey together and develop those strong relationships that will hopefully last long beyond Start 100.
That individualized perspective seems very rare. I guess when you're dealing with students across all disciplines, there isn't any one streamlined approach that you can give to all of them that would necessarily benefit all of them. I'm curious about, not necessarily limited to student entrepreneurship, but entrepreneurship in general, are the many challenges in terms of lack of resources, human capital. What were the main challenges that you've experienced along this journey with Start 100, and what was key in overcoming these?
Personally, the biggest challenge was first just what is an incubator program, and educating myself in terms of what it was and what I wanted it to be and what the team had envisioned when it came about in the first place. In the good old Irish sense, there was lots of tea drank and lots of brainstorming. I suppose we practiced what we preach in terms of taking that design thinking approach to what that would look like. We did a lot of research, and one of the biggest challenges that I had was I had nothing. I had no story. I had no students that had gone through the program. I had no enterprise partners that had supported us in the past and could be that testimonial piece when I was talking to people. Literally, it was leveraging my network, leveraging the contacts that we had as a team, as a university, and with the enterprise partners that we had, and really trying to sell the vision of what we thought this could be and what we wanted it to be, but with nothing really to showcase. So that was a major challenge. And the one thing I would say on that is, for anybody who is thinking about this or doing it, the reception of when I asked people for support, for help, everyone who is delivering and supporting the program is doing so voluntarily, because like most universities, we don't have a huge budget for these programs. So the overarching response from people was, I wish I had that when I was in university. When you can get that reaction, people are so willing to volunteer their time, and they got out as much as our students did, I would say. And then just literally getting the timetable right. And COVID was still very much around, I would say, this time last year. So how much in-person time we could have versus trying to do things online, that was a challenge. And then going out to the student population itself with a brand new idea and a brand new concept and no student voice. And I'd say they were the biggest ones that we had, but realizing where did we fit in the ecosystem and what would success look like. So once I got my head around that, the rest became clear, because I was able to go out then and talk to people and sell them something that didn't really exist yet. It was nice to get the positive response, and it all came together in the end.
Yeah, no mean feat. The Irish enterprise ecosystem is an interesting one because student entrepreneurship in particular has really grown in the last few years, and there's been some big heavy hitters who come to mind in terms of startups like the Collison brothers, FinTech, Stripe, and the Nearm, who built the COVID tracker app out of Waterford. The sort of models of success is, as you said, it's so important with these industry professionals to see other people along their journey of entrepreneurship. How do you match these industry professionals to people in the program?
We ask them, what do you want? But the process for applying, so it is a competitive process to apply. In that, we are asking them from the very start to start thinking about what is it that you think you need next. And I do say what you think you need, because sometimes it changes quite drastically from that first initial application to where they end up when they actually start on the program, because they might have changed their mind, things might have changed. But we do a lot of talking and really try to get to know the teams individually. It's a relatively small number of students. We have 12 teams now. I know some other programs might have a lot bigger teams, but what we can do then is get to know these teams individually and really get to where they might say, what I really want is a web designer. And actually, they're nowhere near putting a pen to paper to get onto a website. So we'll bring them back and try and have that conversation. But we are led by the students in terms of the direction that they want to take. And then we have a bank of mentors that are supporters to IdeasLab. And where we don't have a mentor, we will go out to the network and find one.
And on the topic of the multidisciplinary nature of Start 100, oftentimes when people think entrepreneur, they think creating a business, you are in a business or tech discipline and very little imagination outside of that realm. Why, in your mind, is it important to instill this entrepreneurial mindset in students of all disciplines, even those outside of business?
I think it's so important because it's more reflective of, well, it's the real world. If you're designing or trying to create something that has an impact, you're having it on more than one person and more than one type of person generally. One of the big feedbacks we get from IdeasLab is, I loved working with engineers. I'd never have spoken to them. I loved working with somebody in drama. I'd never have gone over to the arts centre. Magic happens and people think in different ways. We learn in different ways. We solve problems in different ways. And I feel like when you bring those teams together, that's when they open up their minds and the solutions just come in ways that we never thought of and that they never thought of. And it just opens their eyes to being open to everybody in society as well. And I think that's really important just as a life skill in itself to have that. So if we can foster creativity and innovation across disciplines, and when you're in the room and those teams come together and you hear them and you hear the laughter and you can hear them building on each other's ideas and supporting each other with people that otherwise they would never have spoken to, there's something special there. And I think the results we've seen in other programs and in Start 100 are much more holistic ideas. We do live in a multidisciplinary world, so you can't close yourself off to anybody.
Exactly. I would also love to ask you about the Create Her initiative at IdeasLab and how that came about.
Last year, when we started in Start 100, one strikingly disappointing aspect of the applications was we had very few female leads and very few female founders had come forward. But that's okay. We had amazing teams with that. But in the cohort of students that we had, out of 11 teams, we had one female participant who was a member of a team and not a leader or founder of that team as such. And as a team, again, putting on our design thinking hats, we were like, how do we fix this and how do we address this problem? Without boring all the details of the research that goes into it, but there is a significant gap in female entrepreneurship. And I suppose we're at the very start of that journey. So learning from what was available in the Irish ecosystem, we were like, we're the first step on these students' journey into female entrepreneurship. So let's create a program that is based off of what's been successful for very many female entrepreneurs in Ireland and create a student version of that. We put together a really strong advisory across sector, again, being reflective of the type of students that we wanted to attract to the program. And we developed a 6-week program for undergraduate students only. And we got an overwhelming response to the program. And it really, as somebody who's worked in male-dominated environments all my life, I was on the edge of, do we still need this? Should we still need this? Why do we still need this? And the response was huge. The students wanted a program where they could learn to have their voice heard, where they could hear the stories of really successful and inspiring females, and were given the opportunity to sit at round tables with some of the most successful females in Ireland and be heard, be noticed, and develop skills around financial literacy, around resilience, and that's how it came about. So the purpose was to create a program that would empower these students, to give them a lean into entrepreneurship if that's the route that they wanted, but also to give them the confidence to move into whatever industry and enterprise they wanted to go to be leaders in their field. We get very high attendance at all of our programs, but for Create Her, we had a 100% attendance at every module that we gave, which is phenomenal. Also, everything we do is outside their curriculum, and they didn't receive payment to take part. It was all completely in their own time, and what they gave back was tenfold. So it was a 6-week program, structured roundtables and workshops, and also mentorship built in for post-program. It got a great reception from the local community, from local enterprise. They loved the idea of the program. They really want to get involved with us in it again. And we made the students the centerpiece of it, which is what it should be. And we gave them, hopefully, the confidence to go forward with what they want, but also created a pipeline of students into Start 100. So 2 of our Create Her participants are now founders within the Start 100 program, which is amazing. But also, because there was so much talk about it, we got good press out of it. Our ratio in Start 100 this year is 47% female. So it's really good. We were told on average it takes maybe 3 to 5 years for an incubator program's gender balance to come up to 50-50. And we were like, we cannot wait for that to happen. So we didn't. That's how Create Her came about. And we will run it every semester going forward and try and cultivate that environment as well for the female students.
That's amazing to hear. I know that, well, it's just great to see this kind of movement around the topic, because it is so evident, I think, that there is a lack of female entrepreneurs. I know of a similar initiative in Trinity. The Women Who Wow program is also trying to gear up in female entrepreneurship. And I know there's a research project that UIN are involved in called We Are In, also about female entrepreneurship. So it's great to see that even dollar commitment from a European level that is acknowledging that the entrepreneurship is such a hot topic at the minute, that this is certainly an area that needs a lot of attention and support.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that was interesting talking to the female students was often they didn't believe that it was a business. And I suppose maybe it's the terminology that we use sometimes in terms of how we talk about it. But say, for example, one of our students now, she's really into skincare. So that's her thing. But it's such a massive industry in terms of the potential. We will try and support them in whatever their interest is. And I think it's just having that conversation where they're not thinking it just has to be this really defined, set out business from the get-go, and being open to that.
I do have a few more questions I'd like to ask you, Jenny, one of which is, how do you see incubation and student entrepreneurship in the future of education?
I feel it's hugely important. Obviously completely biased because of the space I'm in, because I love it so much and I can see the benefit of it. And I feel it's trying to sell the benefits of what we're doing. And I think we can't underestimate the power of bringing these people together and giving the students the opportunity and the space to learn, to come up with ideas, to fail, to support each other. I think entrepreneurship is much more seen as a career path, much more so than when I was younger. And I love that. It's like what you want to be. I want to be an entrepreneur. Great. Now go find a problem to solve. And you can literally do it for anything. It doesn't have to be this big business. It can be a social enterprise. It can be whatever you want it to be. And I feel what we're doing in our space is so important to run in parallel to the academic learnings of what students are getting, because they can come over to us and put into practice some of the theory perhaps that they've learned in their entrepreneurship modules. It's really important for us to work closely with our universities and with our academics, but also for us to sell it internally to the institution in terms of the benefit that we can bring to the students, and to sell it externally to enterprise. And I think enterprise are driving this to a certain extent, because when we're talking to them, certainly they're like, we want this, we want innovative thinkers, we want people with entrepreneurial mindsets, we want them to come in and disrupt. The world's going to be so different in a few years' time, and we need this to happen for us to be ready and equipped for it, and to create impact, particularly then when you think about sustainability and the longer term impact on the planet in general. I think it's inevitable that it's going to form a part of the future of education, but I think the practical along with the academic is hugely important as well, in terms of working together to figure out what that looks like and giving enterprise and the communities essentially what they want from our students.
Definitely. I feel like project-based learning, challenge-based learning goes hand in hand with that sort of entrepreneurial mindset that we all see as being very necessary for the future. As a final question, for the incubation arm, so what are the first 2 steps? There's a long list of things that have to happen, as you said, in terms of speaking to people, getting resources in terms of capital. What are the first 2 critical steps or success factors?
First, know where you fit in the ecosystem and be happy with it. So we are an incubator, we are early stage. There's many successful accelerators out there. We are not that. We hope to feed into them 100%, but we would want to be the best in the space that we are. And define what success looks like for you at the very start. Be clear on where you're going, have a goal, and be realistic. I'm very ambitious for the longevity of the program and where we're going and have long-term goals, but I did at the very start be very clear around what success would look like for year 1. And I think then you work to that and you can rework it again as we have done this year. But they would be my first 2 steps.
Find your niche and be realistic. I feel like that could be applied to both professional and personal settings. Jenny, thanks so much once again for joining us and sharing your insights, and best of luck with this next round of Start 100. I'm very eager to hear how this round of participants goes.
Thank you. And if you'd like to connect, please do. Free to have a chat about anything incubators if you want. So please reach out. I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you for listening to the discussion. Follow UIN on LinkedIn, and if you're enjoying our podcasts, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review on your podcast platform of choice to help others find this content too.